Greetings, homicidal homeboys, or genocidal homeboys, and welcome to Polecat Cast number 126. Or no, wait, we're on 129, my bad. Las Vegas shooting, Azerbaijan tortures, but my women in Rick and Morty. Where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Mind your spines for the cringe, hold on to your sides for the lulls, and keep your chemo at the ready for this cancer. Today's Polecat panel consists of Max Darrett, Simpsons kin, and definitely not Gene, the meh emoticon from that god-awful emoticon movie that nobody ever asked for.
How dare you even insinuate that there's a possibility?
Some people might get the wrong idea, and I had to clear the air, Max.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Random McCam, Britain, Panda, Puppet Master, and Rabid Long-Range Rhetorician, and me, the Supreme Doge in charge, with my trusty Doge whistle, so I can transmit my suspected white supremacist messages to my secret patriarchal network. Unfortunately, Hannah Wallen cannot make it today. Hannah, you are dead to us. Today, we will be discussing the following topics. It would seem the men's rights movement is a major force on the rise in Silicon Valley of all places. Now that local MRA CEO, Gamergate commissar, and Trump administration official James Damore has decided to come out of the shadows with his dastardly facts and evidence, MRA cells are being activated all over the globe, and they must be stopped. A number of raids in Baku, Azerbaijan, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, a country just
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan? Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan, yeah.
Ah,
I think you
okay.
only stress the Jan. Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Lovely word.
It's a small country north of Iran.
I love their mustard.
A number of raids there has resulted in the arrests and torture of over 100 LGBT citizens. We will delve into this upsetting story in just a moment. Rick and Morty is in its third season, but not all fans like the show so far. Some have dared to express discontent or just wanted to troll the show's new female writers, putting them in mortal danger with their frog memes and mean words. But fear not, damsels. Dan Harmon has recently spoke with internet femme representative Felicia Day, and he is coming to save you from the haters. And here I was expecting Pickle Rick to be some form of rape, which I'm sure that somewhere on the internet it is. A gunman on a high floor of Las Vegas hotel rained a rapid-fire barrage on an outdoor concert festival on Sunday night, leaving at least 59 people dead, injuring 527 others so far, and sending thousands of terrified survivors fleeing for cover, in one of the deadliest mass shootings, if not the deadliest mass shooting, in American history. We will discuss what we know and what the responses have been regarding this very tragic event. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. Since I spent $15 on Hillary Clinton's new book, What Happened, I suppose I should try to get my money's worth by reading more from her newest foray into science fiction. Join me in the after show for some literary aids. Anyway, if you'd like to participate in our after shows, either as an audience member or even a live participant for discussion, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And now I will hand... Oh, so you wanted to say something?
Why would you want to give other people AIDS, let alone yourself? I mean, you already have cancer, you poor guy, and now you just want to double the percentage. Like, are you trying to get more victim points by trying to get AIDS? I don't know. I'm worried about you, man.
Sharing is caring, Max. Sharing.
It can be fun. It can be fun until it isn't. Sharing. It can be fun. Go.
Well, let's get into the first story. So I guess I start. The patriarchy comes out of hiding in Silicon Valley. A New York Post article, originally published by Fox News, claims that the men's rights movement is on the rise in Silicon Valley. Immediately, the author shows their confusion, or more likely, longing to slander the men's rights movement by using a quote from a MGTOW forum, which they say is part of the men's rights movement, along with James Damore, who has become an MRA martyr. The quote picked off from a message board reads, quote, "Women believe they have the right to lie, cheat, deceive, sabotage, to empower themselves in the workplace because they will always see themselves as having never enough to make them happy at work, much like the average marriage. Everybody having or being shown equality is foreign to her, end quote. Now that you're primed with that grammatically awkward quote from a MGTOW forum, are you ready to hear how Google unwittingly created a men's rights martyr? The article continues, asserting that the tech industry, which has been a boys' club that only recently and in some cases begrudgingly accepted women into the fold, has become fertile grounds for vocal MRAs, and that Demore, fired from spreading his memo that argued women were not equally represented in the tech world because they were biologically less capable of engineering, end quote, has, quote, not silenced MRAs in Silicon Valley, but has appeared to galvanize the movement, end quote. This is backed up by articles and tweets of how suspected MRAs, Paul Graham, who argued the science behind the memo, John Durant, who wrote Charles Darwin himself would be fired from Google for his views on the sexes, and Eric Weinstein, who tweeted, quote, Dear @Google, stop teaching my girl that her path to financial freedom lies not in coding, but in complaining to HR. The irony in his statement is palpable, end quote. Shocking, just shocking. So
okay, so
go ahead,
first
Max.
of all, first problem with this is that, okay, if you're going to try and weed out the MRAs in any particular part of social society, the last place that you're going to likely find anything like that is in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you can find an MRA, I don't know, pretty much anywhere if you look hard enough, but if you're going to have the most difficulty trying to find somebody who holds those particular types of views in a place like Silicon Valley, where most of the people that live there, well, not most, maybe like just the majority, let's say 60 to 70% of the people that live there have very progressive views. And it's mostly because their life has been spent trying to learn how to code, and their life has been spent in mathematics rather than, you know, the humanities, where they learn about the various intricacies of gender theory and stuff like that. So they obviously go along with what's obviously the most popular political position. That's what you get in Silicon Valley. And also, thinking that trying to, like, firing James Damore was going to have anything but the, what is it called? The Streisand effect is absolute ignorance. I mean, what was that quote from Obi-Wan? Strike me down and I'll become more stronger than you could ever imagine. Yes, that's exactly what happened.
More powerful than you can ever imagine.
More powerful than you can ever imagine. And then I disappear into thin air. Yeah, but anyways, oh crap! I was getting into my Alec Guinness impersonation, and I completely forgot what I was going to say. Somebody take this away.
Well, I just it's really funny because this is just another one of those cases where you know, there are some is it Damore or Damore? I've been calling him Damore for some reason.
Damore.
It's probably just Damore. Okay, I basically fancied up his name. So James Damore puts out a memo based on some stuff like knowledge and stuff that he's acquired online, and they immediately just say he has to, like, in order for you to even have this data and you use it in a way that even begs where you're basically begging the question, could this be useful? Could this be some way to explain, you know, why there aren't enough women in certain tech positions? To immediately mean that you must be an MRA to feel that way, it makes it very difficult for anybody to have a constructive conversation. And because, as we know, if you just call someone an MRA, you're essentially saying this person's not worth talking to. This is a topic not worth discussing because MRAs are the other, and you can't share their views. And it's actually kind of it's laughable because it means we can't actually, you know, we can't even talk about the ideas because men's rights activists. And of course, you know, I agree with what you're saying, Max. I think that I wouldn't say that I have a lot of experience in Silicon Valley, but I did go there once for a VR conference, and I looked around and listened to people's conversations, and I tried to pay attention during the sort of like the talks they had and some of the speeches that were being made, and it was pretty clear that, you know, the Silicon Valley is a pretty left-wing area. Like, it's overall, that's sort of like the politics, you know. It's California still, for one, and Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense because a lot of people there are younger, and you know, if you're a guy in STEM and you're basically like, you know, this is a job that you're interested in, you're going to be more educated, you likely went to a good college, you likely got taught these values, so it would make sense that most people coming out of there would be they'd either be, you know, pretty left-wing, or they would be maybe libertarian, like the guy who owns PayPal, for example. And of course, he's considered like crazy by these people. But yeah, I mean, it's just funny how powerful the men's rights movement is when you look at the media. But like when when you're actually in it, it's like, how the fuck are you guys thinking that we have this much power? That we're everywhere. They're just like sleeper cells of men's rights activists waiting to get turned on by the appropriate phone call or email memo.
Well, speaking of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I mean, the patriarchy is like the Force. It binds and penetrates all things. It's everywhere, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's probably what they're trying to go for.
The patriarchy
Pickle
is...
Rick!
It's the dark side, and feminism is the light side of the Force. It's
I'm meant to shout Pickle Rick now every time I hear that. Pickle Rick! Sorry, carry
on. What was the other thing I was going to say? Pickle Rick made me forget. Shit. Well, I was going to say... God damn it. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. That's fine.
Jesus.
Sorry, guys. This is why I don't talk.
Yeah, but I was just about to say, you're probably more of an authority to speak about Silicon Valley, because my experience with Silicon Valley only goes as far as A View to a Kill. Kudos to who gets that reference. It's one of the less quality James Bond movies, but
yeah, but it had Duran Duran on the soundtrack, so
yeah. Dance into the fire. I love that song. And Chris Walken being the villain,
yeah,
it was amazing.
He was. That was actually was he like a super soldier in that?
No. He was just he wasn't.
I thought he was like a genetic
man.
But I thought he was like a genetically, or maybe it was one of his underlings. It's been a while since I saw that.
It's not that good of a movie. Just listen to the Duran Duran song.
So yeah, guys, I'm sorry, but the truth is, as much as we want to say that the MRM is taking over, has risen in Silicon Valley and now rules over it with an iron fist, as you can see by this image, it's unfortunately not true. They're just being an MRA is actually quite a lonely existence. So it doesn't have these kinds of perks.
This is just stage one of the ever growing like threat narrative name calling. It starts with MRAs and MGTOWs, and then all your readers of the New York Times go, "We don't know what those are. We don't find that threatening." So then it evolves into fascists and Nazis
and homeboys apparently.
Genocidal homeboys.
Okay, so let's go on to the next story. I thought this was pretty funny, though. Feel free to reply to some of these ridiculous quotes, such as, I do actually want to comment on these briefly. Where one guy says, "Dear at Google, stop teaching my girl that her path to financial freedom lies not in coding, but in complaining to HR." I don't know.
Bam.
I don't know who's making this argument. But I mean, if you're literally tweeting at Google complaining, saying that don't teach your girl to complain, and your girl watches you complain to Google, you are in fact teaching your girl to complain. So maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should teach your girl to sack up, just like everybody else, so that she doesn't become the kind of person that would complain to HR. Do I have to tell people how to do parenting? All right.
Just one last thing. I find it so hilarious that there are people out there that think that James Damore's memo is a sign of the second coming of Caligula or something. That guy has any influence on some sort of toxic ideology trying to penetrate the social fabric of the Western world. That guy is so fucking harmless.
James
You ever listen
Damore.
to that talk? Yeah.
James Damore is Genghis Khan, and that memo is his horde. James Damore is Hannibal, and that memo are his elephants.
One interesting factoid that you guys might find interesting. One out of every, I believe it's 6 or 7 people that live in the world today can trace their lineage back to Genghis Khan.
Yeah, he's got his DNA in dudes from New York to Japan. That's what I heard. I heard it in a song somewhere. Okay, let's move on to the next.
James Damore is Russell Brand, and that memo is his dick.
And Silicon Valley is Katy Perry.
It's true. It works in so many different ways. Silicon Valley. All right, so thank you. I'm here all week. Max, could you please take us to the next story? Unfortunately, less humorous.
Yeah, this is make sure you just have one last laugh for the next 5 seconds before we get into this terribleness. Okay, as if yesterday wasn't bad enough, now we have to talk about this bullcrap. Have any of you ever heard of a country called Azerbaijan? How do you pronounce it?
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan?
You might have to include the Azerbaijan. I think.
Azerbaijan. Okay, yeah. I love their mustard. In case you've never heard of it, it's a country to the east and Armenia. If this is the first time you've ever heard of it, then I regret to inform you that your first impression of the country will not be a good one. At least 100 gay and transgender people have been arrested, tortured, and beaten in Azerbaijan. Police have conducted a number of raids in the capital of Baku and forced those who they arrested to give up their friends' addresses. Police are reporting that their actions have nothing to do with anyone's sexual orientation, but rather that their detainees were engaging in illegal prostitution. However, the deputy chairman of the Justice Party, Ayaz Efendiev... Wow, okay.
That sounds good. I think that's right.
Oh, okay, good.
I think so.
Responded to the arrest with this diplomatic and definitely civilized quote. That's sarcasm, in case you couldn't tell. Defending these creatures who are sources of immorality, dangerous diseases, and who have been cursed by God. Western circles are trying to destroy our national traditions under the name of human rights. On top of this, the president of the LGBT Azerbaijan Alliance, Javid Nabiev, has stated that a police spokesperson has claimed that people of non-traditional sexual orientation were gathered in the center of Baku to engage in prostitution. He added his belief that people in Azerbaijan, as well as the police, might justify the arrests on the basis of the common stereotype that gay and transgender people all have AIDS and other STDs. Despite the fact that homosexuality has been legal in Azerbaijan since 2000, members and activists within the LGBT have been facing continuous systematic oppression. And gee, Brian, I wonder why that is.
Could it be to do with Christianity being like the dominant religion there?
Oh, totally. Oh, wait, no, that's like not the dominant religion.
It's the MRAs. It's the MRAs. James Damore. It must be James Damore doing his thing again.
Yes, all the straight white male butch dudes are trying to hoard all the gays and genders.
Yeah, I mean, because like that moon and that, I think that star looks like it has 6 sides. Maybe it's
pretty.
a different religion, but I can't put my hijab right on it. But I thought that this would be worth talking about for a couple reasons. One of the things, and I tried to do some research on this. I tried to figure out what are the demographics of Azerbaijan. I hope I said that right. Whatever. I tried to look at the demographics because one of the things I was trying to figure out is the percentage of gay men versus lesbians and the percentage of transgender male to female versus female to male. And I couldn't get any numbers on it. And the reason, well, it's not that I don't think that it's a problem in general. Obviously, I do. Let me just start by saying that this is legitimate human rights violations that are happening in these countries, and they do definitely need to get caught up with the rest of the world in terms of LGBT rights and just treating them like human beings and not going with this sort of extreme fundamentalist religion of peace sort of teaching, So I got to get that right out of the gate. But I am willing to bet that if you look at the number, or like if I could get the statistics on the people who have been in fact arrested and tortured, I would bet that it's a majority of men. That's my thinking. And the reason is because, in general, when it comes to, well, first of all, statistically speaking, the overwhelming majority of people who transition from one gender to the other, yes, I'm saying there are two. The majority of people who transition are men who transition to be women. That's the majority. It's like 70% or something. So it's actually the women who transition to men is in the minority. Okay. So first off, you already have the majority of trans people are men in general. So that's probably going to be proportionate here, but I couldn't get any numbers on it. When it comes to gays and lesbians, it's about even. I think I don't think there are more gay men than there are lesbian women, but I do think that historically speaking, whenever there was like sort of systemic oppression or demonization of homosexuals, it was usually focused on male homosexuality and not necessarily female homosexuality. In general, people don't care about lesbians. They're indifferent towards them. I think even in fundamentalist Islamic countries in other parts of the world, lesbians they're indifferent towards them. And maybe it's because they already have rules for women anyway. And, you know, so, but generally though, it's sodomy that's the problem. When a man is receiving sodomy, those are the things that they usually target. So that means it's usually men. And I think that it's important for us to point it out because these are men's issues. And in these countries where this stuff is happening, there are people who want to bring feminism there because they think that this is what feminism needs to do. And of course, we know that feminists have...
It is.
That this is... but feminists usually co-opt other sort of civil rights movements like the LGBT stuff or even minority groups, which have nothing to do with women. And when they do, then what happens is they immediately focus on women and then they put men in the back burner. And there are examples of this. Even the LGBT movements here in the States... I don't know if you guys knew this, but did you know that it started off as GLBT? And originally they put gay first. Well, they flipped it to they put lesbians first. And I actually, when I was at, and not that that's a big deal. We're talking about a name change, but it's important because in the eyes of feminists, lesbians are more oppressed than gay men. But the fact is, gay men experience a lot more discrimination than lesbian women do, because again, generally people don't give a shit about lesbians. But this reminds me of another story. When I was in London the year before last, or last year, I'm sorry, right? Yeah, because we went to Australia this year. Last year when we went to the UK for the ICMI, one of the people I met there was a guy whose name unfortunately fails me, but I'm actually going to be bringing him on for a fireside chat pretty soon. He made a documentary about circumcision, and it's very graphic, but it's very good. If you guys, I can get you the date on it and bring it up pretty soon. I can't remember off the top, but he used to be a gay rights activist before he got involved with the men's rights movement, because he himself is gay too, and he also had a circumcision. And he told us a story about how when he was a young man in the 70s, I believe it was, and he went to a screening of a film about about circumcision, I believe. And yes, I believe that's what it was. He went to some film that dealt with gay men's problems, and there were a bunch of lesbians that went to the show, a bunch of feminist lesbians. So they're not just like general lesbians, but feminist lesbians. And they went to the show, and he tried to have a conversation with them about the problems that gay men face. And the lesbians shut him out, and they bullied him, and they attacked him. And he basically, that was his wake-up call. That feminists don't care about gay men as much as they do like their preferred groups, because gay men, I don't know if you guys know, but recently gay men are no longer part of the progressive stack because they're still men. So he actually had a wake-up call because politically speaking, so this is not just about just general LGBT rights, but politically speaking, as feminists and particular radical feminists, obviously, they don't have much in the way of support for gay men. So usually when they are talking about LGBT rights, they usually have a focus on lesbian women first, then trans women, then gay men, and sometimes trans men. And you can also see that by, not that TERFs are kind of an extreme example, but you can also see that by what happened to Theron Meyer on last week's show. We talked about how she was essentially banned from Twitter because she got into an argument with some TERFs. So it's just important to point out that the solution to problems like the one going on in Azerbaijan is not feminism. This is obviously a human rights issue, but this is not the kind of thing that feminism in its current state tends to work on. So this is the reason why I want to bring it up. I think it's tragic. I think it's really messed up, regardless of whether you're trans, lesbian, or gay. Or even bi, because I'm sure that there are bi people who got, picked up just the same, and they're just being treated like gays because of this backwards, barbaric religion. So those are my thoughts.
And just Tim Hammond?
What was that?
Tim Hammond, was that his name?
I think so. You know what I'm talking about. He showed the...
I mean.
Yeah, let me just look him up here.
One other thing I just wanted to say in response to you pointing out that the majority of the people that are arrested were probably men. The reason why there's probably a lack of women is because in that part of the world, women likely don't have any opportunity to explore their sexuality because ultimately they're born to be the property of men.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, ultimately. So, the thing is, it's just, this is not the answer. Like, because I know that, obviously feminist lobbyists, if they even take an interest in this, they're going to go in and say, what you need is this ideology. But remember, the ideology of feminism's greatest interest, their primary number one interest they have above all else is maintaining the relevancy of feminism itself. After that comes whatever it is they care about in the order that they care about it. But more important than anything is maintaining feminism itself. So, I think this is really messed up, and I'm not entirely surprised. I hope that the gay and transgender people who have been arrested, detained, and tortured, I hope that they can find some peace and freedom very soon. And maybe they can, I don't know, either get out of that country or somebody goes in there and fixes things. But places like the Middle East, it's not good for you if you're this kind of person. So,
and just one other thing in respect to the leader of the LGBT Azerbaijan Alliance, major kudos to you for having the balls, for having the fortitude to speak out on these particular issues and put your face out there. And obviously, if there's any chance that there's any people listening to this show from Azerbaijan, make sure that you keep your gender identity a secret. Not because I want you to, on the basis of like I have any prejudice. It's because I want you to live, right? Mm-hmm. So just unless you're very confident that you can share this with a family member or a friend and they can keep it secret and they can protect you, just do your best to survive.
Actually, let's make a deal. We'll have your immigrants as long as it's just the gay ones.
Yeah, we'll take the gay ones.
Yeah, we'll take all the gay ones. Come on.
They're actually refugees.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Wow, I sounded way more enthusiastic about...
I was going to say that, Max. You seemed... I mean, it's...
Super!
Look, not that there's anything wrong with that, but yes, you're welcome to be super enthused. Open your doors.
No, you got to say, like, super enthused.
Super enthused. Open your doors and your cheeks and let them in. So... I just had to make some kind of joke. Okay, so...
Yeah.
Let us move on now. My heart goes out to you guys in Azerbaijan. But let us move on now to the next story where we can get back to the silly. Dan Harmon, White Knights for the Women's. It looks like Season 3 of Adult Swim's hugely popular animated series Rick and Morty isn't pleasing as many people as it used to, and some fans have gone to social media to express their discontent. It may not be a coincidence that Season 3 comes after the Rick and Morty team hired on two new female writers, Jane Becker and Jessica Gao, and fans of the show believe they may be responsible, in part, for this lack in quality. But what actually does get the blame? Well, misogyny, of course. Co-creator Dan Harmon said of the harassment of the female writers, quote, "I was familiar going into the third season, having talked to Felicia Day, that any high-profile women get doxxed, they get harassed, they get threatened, they get slandered. And part of it is a testosterone-based culture patting themselves on the back for trolling these women. Because to the extent that you can get a girl to shriek about a frog, you've proven girls are girly, and there's no crime in assaulting her with a frog because it's all in the name of proving something. I think it's all disgusting, end quote. He then went on to bash his fan base in general, the people that made him famous, by adding, quote, "These knobs that want to protect the content that they think that they own and somehow combine that with their need to be proud of something they have, which is often only their race and gender. It's offensive to me as someone who was born male and white and still works way harder than them that there is some white male fan out there trying to further some creepy agenda by protecting my work. I've made no bones about the fact that I loathe these people. It fucking sucks. And the only thing I can say is that if you're lucky enough to make a show that is really good, that people like, that means some bad people are gonna like it too. You can't just insist that everybody who watches your show get their head on straight. And I'm speaking for myself, I don't want the show to have political stance. But at the same time, individually, these harassers aren't politicians and don't represent politics. They represent some shit that I probably believed in when I was 15. End quote. It's interesting, because I decided to take to Twitter myself, and I found that while Jane Becker does do some crying about harassment online, although I wasn't able to find too much in the way of evidence of actual harassment, Jessica Gao seems to only talk about her family shenanigans on Twitter while engaging in the occasional virtue signal, and male writer Ryan Ridley also has his share of trolls to deal with. But I guess it's because women are especially weak and in need of protection that we should ignore that.
I want to know what Justin thinks. I want to know what Justin Roiland thinks. It's clear that he's the Tesla in this relationship.
That Justin Roiland is the other co-creator?
Yeah, he's the guy who does all the voices, and he's the creator. Dan Harmon sort of community got cancelled, and he went and found a crazy cartoonist on the internet and said, I want to make your fucked up short into a show.
Well, I'm gonna.
So he's the Edison of the relationship, basically.
Justin Roiland, R-O-I.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna look him up. I'm gonna find out what he thinks. Go ahead.
First of all, like obviously in any particular circumstance, I personally want to maintain some skepticism because maybe these women are actually being persecuted for whatever reason. But when it comes to Dan Harmon, I'm going to err on the side of maybe some things are being exaggerated because let's remember, this is a guy who believes that 1/3 of the U.S. population are Nazis.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
Wait, Dan Harmon believes that?
Yeah, he said something about, if you look it up, it might not be an exact quote, but that's what he said.
Wow. Look, Dan knows how to market things. That's what I'm saying. That's how they got this far in this relationship. Like, Justin's the crazy, like, dude that actually does the shit. And Dan's the guy who knows how to talk to the censors and, like, get his show actually on the air and stuff. So it was sort of bound to... It was likely that he would have leanings a bit like this. Yeah.
Ugh. Okay.
It's always really upsetting when the most talented people that write such great quality content happen to be the most crazy when it comes to socio-political issues, like Joss Whedon or Dan Harmon, because both have produced some amazing, amazing content.
Well, I would say that as far as the harassment goes, I went through the Twitters of both of the women that he's supposed to be sticking up for. Okay. And I couldn't find anything significant. I mean, I found the first woman, I got to get her name again because I already forgot. Oh, Jane Becker. I saw her complaining about trolls, but I didn't see any trolls. I didn't see anybody hating. And when I looked up Jessica Gao, like 90% of her tweets were just like about her family and about the show. It was completely like innocuous. And then occasionally she'd be like, you know, oh my God, like, you know, here, Trump said something stupid right here, or some other kind of virtue signaling shit, you know, like talking about the guys at Charlottesville. Like I went back that far to Charlottesville, and she didn't really seem to I'm not saying that it didn't affect her, but they're both still on Twitter. They didn't get driven off of there. I didn't see anything significant. And the funny thing is the male writer who I looked up, whose name is, I got to look him up again, Ryan Ridley. He's one of the main writers on the show. He's still getting hate, but nobody, like, I mean, like, at least he's responding to it, right? But he doesn't, like, nobody seems to care. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, okay, the reason why I'm bringing this up is simple. When you are, when you become famous and you basically build a little platform for yourself online or on television or whatever, you become reasonably famous. You become an internet personality. All right, inevitably, you're going to get haters. Inevitably, no matter what you do, Jesus Christ, okay, could come back to life, open up a Twitter account, be nice to everybody, and have haters. I mean, of course he'd have hate. Even the atheists, which like essentially would have said Jesus never existed, if he came back to life and said, well, here I am, and turned their water into wine, and then said, I'm going to open up a Twitter, he would get haters, no matter what. It's about how you deal with that. And it's not about whether or not they should exist, because you can't, I mean, I guess Twitter's trying to create an environment where there's no such thing as haters, but the fact is, there are haters, there are trolls, and then there are people who are neither of those things, but get lumped into those categories. Like, when I did see some people, I think on Ryan Ridley's Twitter, there was a guy who said, oh, I think he was talking about season 3, episode 5 is what he said. Now, I haven't seen a lot of Rick and Morty, and unfortunately, I can't watch it on Netflix, so I don't know, I don't have, like, cable or anything like that. So I gotta, like, get it when I can. But I've seen some of it, and this guy made a tweet to Ryan Ridley, and he said, Season 3, Episode 5 is the first episode that I thought was good but not great of Season 3. So this guy basically had a criticism that he didn't like Season 3 so far, as much as the previous ones, but he thinks Season 5 or Episode 5 is okay, and he tweeted it to Ryan Ridley, okay? And Ridley's response was, oh, I'm splitting the difference. I guess he just basically made a comment. He dealt with it. He took it on the chin. He made a comment back, and he was done. He did not honestly have to respond to it at all. But the thing is, these are the kinds of tweets that many people are calling harassment. But why is it not harassment when another man gets the tweet? It's because guys like Dan Harmon hold women to a low-ass standard when it comes to what they can put up with. And either that or the women are actually less tolerant in general of the stuff, but I'd like to believe that they can handle it just like any man can. So it's the white knighting shit. Just, it really pisses me off because it's really like, it's shitty towards women. Like, seriously,
Yeah, exactly. And you know what else like that makes me lean towards, so probably over exaggerating the salaciousness of these tweets, is because there are women that are in charge of much bigger franchises than Rick and Morty right now, and you don't hear them complaining, at least to anything that I've been able to look up. Like, let's say, I don't know, Kathleen Kennedy of Star Wars, or Bonnie Ross of Halo. I don't hear anything coming from them, and they're in higher positions of authority. They have Twitter accounts.
Well, maybe they don't bitch. Maybe they don't complain.
They're too busy to bitch.
Yeah.
They're actually changing the entertainment landscape for the better, in my opinion. There's going to be fucking haters out there. Just bear with me, okay? I'm trying to make a general point.
No, I hear you. I feel your pain. Well, okay, your point. So this woman who's writing Star Wars, is she doing like the new Star Wars?
Yeah,
movies?
She's the producer, but she's always been on. Even during the prequel, she was sort of like George Lucas' right hand.
Well, that's not really much better. So, I mean, like, look, personally, I don't hate the prequels, but as much as some. Just Phantom Menace is pretty bad. But I think that, when you look at what the general Star Wars fan base thinks, they're not fans of the prequels, and a lot of them are not fans of the new trilogy. But even if they were giving her shit, and I think that they'd actually have a lot of cause for it, even if I don't necessarily agree to the extreme that they might, it seems like we're not hearing about it because either she's too busy or she just doesn't care. Like it's because the thing is, the prequels, however you feel about it, is irrelevant because they made money. They made money off of action figures, and they made money off the spin-off shit, and animated shows and all kinds of other crap. So it doesn't matter. The money came in, it's cool, and it makes me think, to your point, Max, that either Dan Harmon is exaggerating, which is helpful if you want to look like the best white knight or the one good male, is basically you get to say, look at all the abuse that these bitches are putting up with, but it's okay because I'm here to save the day. I'm here to protect them, and I got choice words for the folks that watch my show on the regular and essentially are the reason why I'm famous and rich, and I'm gonna shit all over them, in general. And I think that it's, it's just kind of sad. Sad. Just really sad. So, what are you going to do? Virtue Signal is going to virtue signal. Anybody here watched Rick and Morty season 3?
I don't watch a whole lot of TV, man. I've heard that it's fantastic. I just chance to sit down and...
Yeah. What about Mike? I know you watch it.
I've been watching it since the pilot. Yeah, I'm playing the hipster card. And honestly, I didn't notice any difference in the writing. And then someone mentioned, like, a few episodes in that there's female writers in there. Okay, I didn't know that. Because they've always had this thing where they have the A story about the sci-fi stuff and the B story about the family stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's no different in the 3rd season. I can see why people are getting sick of it, because it's the 3rd season. And it's now getting a large following. So all the hipsters like me are going, oh, it's now that more than 4 people like it, I don't like it anymore. I've still got no complaints about it. I don't know what anyone is complaining about. I think this is just controversy being drummed up for its own sake, which you don't need, because it's like the best show on TV. You don't need controversy to sell it.
No.
It seems to be harming it in some way.
Yeah. I mean, if it's doing well enough that there are enough people watching it that you get more, people who are not impressed or complaining on Twitter or whatever, you're doing all right. I would say you're doing all right. I guess maybe it's just drummed up so that they're trying to get more people to watch, which I think never works, and it always gets the opposite of the desired effect. But it could also simply be that the audience has grown enough that you just have more people, and if you have more people, you have more people that are going to complain. I mean, that's just the nature of humans, is to complain about shit that they, are into for any reason. So, I don't know. All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to the last story now. We're doing good time. This one, also tragic, but we had to talk about it, okay? Tragedy hits the Strip. Late last Sunday night, during Jason Aldean's set at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, a lone gunman opened fire from the 32nd floor inside the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in what is being called the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. The shooter, Stephen Paddock, age 64, fired multiple bursts totaling hundreds of rounds at the tightly packed group of concertgoers as they scrambled to escape the venue. As police and security locked down the area, a strike team was sent into the room Paddock was staying at, only to find him already dead of a self-inflicted gunshot. Although initial reports from the Islamic State have them claiming responsibility for the attack, as well as Antifa of Melbourne, no evidence of Paddock having any ties to ISIS have surfaced. Paddock's motives are still a mystery. He had no prior criminal record. Friends and family described him as a fairly wealthy and quiet man who enjoyed video poker, golf, and staying at Vegas hotels. As of today, the total count of those killed numbers are 59, and the injured is at 527.
Well, first of all, just get the necessary stuff out of the way and the obvious stuff. Thoughts and prayers, that whole diatribe, but I'm actually serious when I say that. This is the first time in a long time where I've watched a tragedy unfolds live on TV, and I felt myself becoming a little bit emotionally attached, which is difficult for me because, God, I hate bringing this up, but it's pertinent to this particular discussion. I have high functioning autism, which makes it kind of difficult sometimes for me to be able to emotionally relate in the way that some other people do. But when they're compiling this footage of families that have been affected by this event, I live in Canada. I've been watching stories about Canadian victims that were at that concert, and the way it's affecting all these families, it makes your heart rip in two. And what makes it worse is that we still don't understand what the motivation was to commit such a terrible, terrible crime.
Well, you know, that I think when something like this happens, people want to try to make sense of it. And they want to try to, like, you know, find a reason. It's actually something right out one of my favorite movies. I watched it last night, and it was kind of a random choice, but it was something I was meaning to do because, like, you know, since my wife is living with me, every once a week or so I try to, like, expose her to one of my movies because I wanted to watch the movies that I like. And she doesn't get to watch a lot of them. So we watch Arlington Road. You ever seen that? That's
No.
Tim Robbins and I can't remember his name. The guy from Tron, the first Tron.
Oh, Jeff
Bridges, yes.
Thank you.
And it's about these neighbors that move in, and they turn out to be, like, part of a terrorist organization. But the thing that the movie was talking about a lot of stuff. It's actually really good, nice. You should check it out. But there was something from the movie that the Jeff Bridges character points out. He's like a professor that teaches history and specifically talks about terrorism and some conspiracy stuff. When something like this happens, humans want to make sense of it in a way that allows us to essentially feel secure again. Okay? So when we name our killer and we say this is the person that did it and this is why they did it, it helps us feel like, okay, now we know. And we know that this has happened, and we know the reason why it happened. So now we have, like, a clear-cut idea of what our enemy is, or at the very least that, you know, like, that this person is if it's a lone gunman, that they're dead and they're gone, and we don't have to worry anymore. So it's one of those two things. Like, if we can identify an enemy, then, you know, we now know who we need to focus on, because now we know what it's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. People want to know what their enemy is, right? So they want to figure it out. And then there are those who are basically like, well, if he operated on his own, now that he's dead, we don't have to worry about anything like that happening again from that guy, right? Because he's gone. And it's basically the way that we try to feel secure. So as tragic as it is, and it is a really, really messed up situation, what's come after it from people has been everywhere on a spectrum from, you know, somewhat reasonable discussion that's trying to figure out motives and reasons, even if there isn't enough data out there. And obviously I understand the human desire to try to make sense of something as insane as this. So it borders from that to outright disgusting things, like where there are, you know, there was a CBS reporter, for example. I don't know if you know.
About that fucking bitch.
Yeah, that said, you know, well, because it was a country music concert, that means that a lot of Republicans died, and that's okay with me personally, right? She did get fired from her job, by the way, because of that.
Just one quick thing, you know, the thoughts and opinions expressed by the individuals on Honey Badger Radio don't necessarily represent the whole.
No.
But in respect to that woman there, kill yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, she lost her job at CBS. It's funny, like how Twitter works. You know, with people just want to share their views, and I guess to feel like you can just say something like that, it's pretty fucked up. Now, again, of course, I'm a free speech absolutist. You should be able to say it, and I'm not thrilled that she lost her job. Because it's not like it's going to change her views, but I guess, you know, for some that might bring them some pleasure that happened, but I don't think it changes much. Like, she said what she said, and I know a lot of people feel that way. I actually saw another tweet by somebody else who basically was like, if enough Trump supporters are murdered, then he couldn't be reelected in 2020. So it was just ridiculous. Like, yeah, it was crazy, but I saw that. But I mean, then there's other stuff. Like, you know, obviously, I only want to know what the Young Turks had to say. But there are people who are basically saying this is white supremacy, even though he gunned down a country music concert and he had, like, an Asian girlfriend. There are people who are saying, oh, yeah, you know, ISIS comes out and they're like, we will claim responsibility for this. And that there are people speculating that he may have been radicalized by his Asian girlfriend because she's from the Philippines, and the Philippines has, like, a majority of Muslim, or there's a large number of Muslims that live there. That's like,
a stretch.
It's all very much a stretch. Like, if, you know, just wait. We may not learn the reason why this happened, but it's better to wait for the facts than to try to jump to conclusions. You know, you can speculate, I guess. I mean, I can't say that I can't tell you what to do, but just try to like keep a level-headed, perspective on it. We don't know, as far as like when they interviewed his brother said, look, the guy was not political. He was not, he just wasn't the type of person that would have any motivation to do this. It just came out of the blue. That doesn't mean his brother may not be close enough to know, but it would seem that there is a good chance that he doesn't know anything. Now, people are saying that he voted for Bernie Sanders. There are people who are saying that, they have photos of him at like the Women's March wearing a pussy hat. I don't know. And even if that's true, that doesn't necessarily mean that it makes sense that he would,
exactly
do that, right? So it's important to point that out. And of course you have the people who have agendas, like people who are saying it's a white male, it's terrorism. Until we have a motive that it's politically motivated, like the intention of this was to get people to do something politically, you cannot call it terrorism. It's just mass murder. That's all it is at this stage.
Just one semantic thing. Apparently, when it comes to defining terrorism in California, or not California, my mistake, Nevada, they define terrorism as just large-scale violent acts that doesn't necessarily have to have religious or political motivations. So I guess you can call it terrorism if you're living in Nevada, but other people might be a little bit more reluctant to saying that, and understandably so.
What? That's a little far-fetched, because if you were a serial killer, I mean, would it have to be a mass murder all at once? Like, if you're a serial killer and you kill like 30 people over the course of several years, would that be terrorism?
No, it would have to be a particular event. So I'm only speaking from what I saw in a video that Philip DeFranco posted yesterday. So that's all I'm going off of.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's Nevada's definition, but I don't agree with it, because if you had a brain tumor and you basically like went on a killing spree because there was like literally like a growth in your head and you were just going crazy and you saw demons everywhere or some shit, that there's no motivation for that. Like you're not trying to get the government to do something. You're not trying to drive a people out of the state or out of the country. You're just literally sick. So that I don't know, that seems crazy, but okay, if Nevada wants to define it that way, that's fine. I think that's muddying the waters a bit, because when real terrorism happens, it's going to be difficult to make that distinction. And the motivations of people to do stuff like that is, I mean, it's crucial to defining what it is. It's crucial. So we don't know.
Yeah, you want a good example of a white dude committing terrorism? There was a white guy that shot a bunch at a mosque here in Quebec, Canada. That's terrorism, because he did it for religious reasons. Yeah,
that's an example for sure. I guess if you broaden the definition of terrorism, it's harder to, like if you broaden the definition of terrorism to essentially be mass murder, then you can call any of these things terrorism in the right conditions. And since the majority of Nevada is white, then you can call it white terrorism every time it happens. That way, when a Middle Eastern man comes and snaps and guns down a gay nightclub in Nevada, you can call it terrorism too, but then you get to compare it to the numbers and say, well, they don't happen there. It doesn't happen here as often. I guess that's useful for some people. But seriously though, this is really messed up. It's obviously I do have some friends and family in Nevada, and they seem to be okay. They weren't there. They're not in Vegas, so. But it is messed up. So guys, just try to keep a cool head on your shoulders while people are coming out and making these speculations, and be sure to call out bullshit, because we do not have all the info. And,
Sam Hyde didn't do this.
No, and we certainly don't know why this happened at this time. So
there's already conspiracy theories for it, because I was looking up some videos on this earlier, and there's already stuff about false flag. There was a second gunman. Look, there was a flash in the fourth floor window and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh god.
Which is groany and shit. But I miss shit like that. I think that's better than the fucking identity politics.
No, I agree.
Just
and the
go
gun
back
grab
to the fucking JFK style conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
that was
go
much
back
more
to
palatable.
Jet fuel can't melt steel beams kind of shit. I'm okay with that. Just like those can be funny. I'm okay with that. Just the gun grabbing and the identity politics and the white supremacy and all that shit, you can leave that at the door. We've had enough. So
Identity politics has gotten so toxic that you prefer conspiracy theories and false flags over that.
Yes.
Yeah, and just one other thing, just to keep in mind during this terrible tragedy. We discussed an example of this on the Breaking Badger, which was released just earlier today. Make sure to go watch that. There's a lot of great human stories that are coming out of this particular tragedy about strangers helping other strangers, and just how there are people waiting for medical treatment, and there are strangers holding bandages over wounds just to keep the blood from flowing out of them. And there was another story about a man named Sonny who took a bullet for his wife, and now unfortunately he was one of the victims that passed away. And it's the most tragic thing, but just realize that in impossible situations like these, ladies and gentlemen, there's great examples of how human beings can continue to persist through the chaos, and from that I think we should derive some strength and derive some hope.
Yeah, I mean, that's
letting ourselves fall into despair.
Yeah, that's the overwhelming majority when you think about it, because we have one gunman that did this terrible thing, and then hundreds, if not thousands, of people helping. I mean, there's like if you're like losing faith in humanity, just think about those numbers. And the thing is, there are multiple hardships that the United States are going through right now. We don't just have this shooting in Nevada, but we have the hurricane in Puerto Rico. We had the stuff that happened in Texas. We had the stuff that was going on in Florida, and everyone's coming together and just getting shit done, helping each other out. And there are people, obviously politically motivated people behind the scenes, trying to use this as to score political points, or to try to get some kind of leverage, whatever. They're disgusting, and that's not helpful, but they are definitely in the minority. So, and also Ariana Grande is an idiot. Anyway, she tweeted out that this is definitely an act of terrorism, make no mistake. By the way, Ariana Grande had her own concert shut up in the UK by an actual terrorist. But this was real terrorism, guys. That was not. I don't remember her bringing that up back in those. Remember that? That was like...
Yeah.
Yeah. So... But, she's an idiot, so whatever.
Yeah. Just hold a benefit concert and sing Crowded House. Well, between us... Yeah, you're not helping.
No.
But don't blow her up, please. She's not that bad. Just stay home tonight.
Well, we got through the stories pretty quickly.
Damn.
So I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I mean, I would say it's because Hannah's not here, but that sounds mean, so I won't, even though I just did. No, it's fine.
We love you, Hannah. Honestly, you're a treasure to all of us.
Of course, yes, absolutely. I mean, this is how we get our extra half hour. So, and I only did 4 stories. Sometimes I do 5, so I think it worked out. So I want to thank my co-hosts, Max and Mike, for coming on. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. We're going to be now going into the after show, where I'm going to be reading from Hillary Clinton's book, What Happened? I mean, we all know the answer to that question, but apparently she needs to ask it. And, yeah, that should be fun. I'm going to pick up from where I left off from the epic stream that I did to try to raise money for Hannah's Mixed Up Meetup I think it was like a month ago or so. So, if you want to join us on the after show, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. If you experienced interruptions like buffering, which seems to happen a lot on YouTube, try watching us on Twitch. It comes on at the exact same time. It does go live when we go live on YouTube, and as I understand, it's a lot more stable. Or maybe Twitch is less interested in trying to, let's say, make things challenging for us. I don't really know who could be responsible. But
just as long as you don't show boobs on Twitch, you're pretty much good.
Yeah, and we don't do that. I mean, not on purpose. Sometimes Karen turns on her camera, but,
Yeah. Yeah, and besides the fact that, one of us is trying to transition, I won't say who, we don't have boobs.
No. Everybody here is...
I only believe in 2 things, and they're both boobs.
That's good. All right, guys. We'll see you guys on the flip.
And the First Amendment, because with that you can say how much you love boobs.
That's exactly
I
right.
motorboat boobs with the First Amendment.
I'll show you my First Amendment.